Good afternoon, and welcome to the barely controlled chaos that is my office. I have to admit, for a long while I've had a major hole in my life which I haven't really talked about much. And here it is. This was where my Epson Stylus 1400 photo printer used to sit until it gave up the ghost earlier this year. Since then, I've been unable to print any of my photos, which is a bit of a problem. And for that problem, here is the solution. An Epson ET-8550, which is one of the most highly regarded personal printers around. So at this point, I'm going to be doing an unboxing and a setup, and we'll see what sort of prints we can get out of this. So here we go with the unboxing. We have one disc here and a bunch of usual documentation. A bag, which I believe is for putting the printer back in if we need to return it. The ink cartridges, I believe, are in this thing. We'll look at them later. And here we have the printer itself. I'm going to cut the picture here so that we don't have to watch me trying to wrangle this thing out of the box onto the counter, so the next time you'll see it, it will be done. And here we are. As anyone who has bought an Epson product knows, these things come with a plethora of blue packing tape, so let me start pulling these off and then we can move on. When I said there was blue tape everywhere, I'm not kidding. Yeah, and even more. Remove some of this stuff. Things taped in pretty thoroughly. Well, I think that's everything. I hope. The power cord has been attached. Now it's time to turn it on. Trying to film this while doing that, I ended up picking the wrong one. Obviously, I can't scan this while using the video camera, so I'll have to wait for a moment here. And here we are. Now I'm looking at the start here documentation, and the next step is to fill the tanks. One of the distinctive features of Epson EcoTank printers is that they have an internal tank instead of cartridges, and they are refilled from these bottles, which are inexpensive, and as you can see, got a lot of content in them, so they should last a good long time. Now, these inks are a bit controversial because they use dye ink for the colors, plus a pigment photo black. Now, I know that the conventional wisdom has it that pigment inks are to be preferred for longer print life, but I noticed that Wilhelm Image Research, which is probably the premier lab in the world for doing accelerated testings of inks and papers, have reported that the Claria inks that Epson does, the dye-based ones, pretty much have the exact same archival length of life that the pigment printers, the pigment inks have, up to about over 150 years when framed behind UV-resistant glass. So these should last just the same as any pigment printer would, and so I have no problem selling these if I sell them myself as archival prints. So this is the access to the print tanks. I'm going to install black first. Supposedly, these are keyed so that you cannot fill the wrong tank with the wrong ink, at least. They are designed so that each fits. So I'm going to tip this one over and put it in here. And it's starting to drain. As you can see down there, it'll be starting to fill up in here. I can start seeing it. They say it will take 40 seconds to fill and it will stop automatically. Right there's, I believe, the fill line, so I'm waiting for it at that point. I'm wrong. It's probably the one up here, I guess. It's the one up here I hadn't spotted. But yeah, it's filling it up all the way to the top there. And I guess that's telling me it's done. Now to fill the other ones. The print black. It says cyan. Try to get in here. There it goes. Now the final color here is gray, which is pretty unusual ink to find in these printers, but it supposedly will help with black and white printing. That appears to be that. Now, according to the instructions, I'm supposed to hit this button for 5 seconds. It does not seem to be proceed. Yes. Proceed, I guess, telling me the same thing we had before, so just going to go through all these. Okay, press OK for 5 seconds. Now we're going to press Start to charge the ink, which supposedly will take about 7 minutes, so I'm obviously not going to keep this running during it. Well, we're done with that. For the next step, we have to do some print alignment maneuvers, and for that we need some paper. Now, this is a photo printer, true, but it also can handle plain paper and it can be used as an office printer, so I'm going to be using regular plain paper to set this thing up for the print test. So, in a few moments I will be back with some real paper. So get the plain paper being added to the printer. Looks like it takes maybe about 100 sheets, I'm thinking. Maybe a bit less. That should be enough. Oh, I left the tape off here. Oops. Knew there was something I would have missed. And let's see, it looks pretty good from upside down. So we have here. Yes, all the colors are nicely done there. There are no gaps or anything. So, time to continue onward. Check the closest result. It certainly looks like the non-gapped one is correct there, so that's that. Print position, adjust. 5 types of alignment. Well, got more than 6 sheets of paper there, so here goes nothing. Do you really want to watch this being printing for 5 pages? No, I don't. I guess I should, because here it is. Now let's look at this. Select the pattern that shows no gap or dark line. No gap or dark line between what? Right now it looks like they all look good to me, but I'm talking about where they're aligned with each other. I think 4 looks pretty good, so I think I'll take 4. Really not sure what to do here, because it looks like 2 is also 4, I think. I'll print more alignment patterns. Okay, this looks more interesting here. Let's see what we have. It's like blue and gray. I'm not seeing a whole lot of other colors right now. I guess we're printing a few more pages, so I'll just stop this after they're all printed. So I've got a whole bunch of squares, and I'm supposed to indicate which one has the fewest streaks. So obviously I'm going to be taking a while looking over each of these, and we'll continue afterwards. Okay, so I've gone through all 10 of these and picked the square that seemed to have the least streaks on them. See what happens now. More print alignment patterns. Okay, I'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, on this set, it says, once again, select the pattern that shows no gap or dark line. I think I understand now what they're looking at. You're looking at the where those cross lines are, whether it comes out of alignment at one side or the other. As you can see over on the first couple up here, the bottom half is definitely off to the side from the bottom moves off to the left. And if you look at the rest of them, they all look pretty good, but I think either 5 or 6 is the best. I'm going to go with 5. Now the same thing on the bottom here. One that actually seems the best here is 7. To me. Or 6, maybe. I think 7. See whether there be more to print after this. Yes, I do. This time it's produced a couple of cyan bars, and it's asking you to choose the rectangles that are not separated or overlapped. If you look at the first one, you can see there's a very, very faint dark blue line where the 2 overlap. And on the final one, the seventh one, you get a very, very slight gap. I don't know if it shows up on this video. So I'm looking all these over, and it looks to me like 5 is the best. So I'll pick 5 here. And more of these. I'm using black, or I believe gray, actually. Gray. First, second, I see overlaps. I do see overlap on the third. Fourth, a little bit. Once again, 5th looks best at this point. Print alignment complete. You can adjust again for maintenance, okay? So I think there are a few other things I have to do here, such as set up my network. So I'm going to stop this right now, and we'll come back when it's time to actually print something. I've set up the network, and all of the utilities are now installed so that it wants to print a test page. So I shall open this up and see what happens when I send it from the computer. The dreaded wait. Okay, it's showing up with the support page, the monitor on the computer, so I'm assuming something's starting, and there it goes. And it looks like we have a successful test print. So I will look at this in a bit. And I think we're ready to start printing regular things. The problem at this moment is that I had ordered some Epson printing paper from Amazon, which was supposed to show up today, and it looks like it's held up in transit a bit. So this is probably going to be it until I get some more paper.
Much later.
Well, it's now Sunday, and I have in hand some Epson print paper. It's recommended that you do your first prints on a paper from the printer manufacturer. And so I'm about to do a first test print. Printing expert Keith Cooper says that the one thing you should not do is start off by printing one of your own pictures, because you can't really judge how comprehensive that will be in terms of showing off whether things are working or not. So I have a test sheet that was made by him, and it's available on his website. And this covers just about everything that you want to be looking for and see how things come out. So I am about to run this right now. I'm using Epson print layout for this time, and I've got the ultra premium media type, which is what I'm using. And that should ensure that I use the right profile. So here we go. Here we have it. It took about 4 minutes to do the sheet. Now time to let it dry for a bit. Here we have the resulting print against the screen representation of it. Now this is going to look a little bit deceptive because, of course, the print itself is under a yellow light, or a more yellowish light than the screen light, so I can't really estimate them that correctly. But if you go back and forth between them, find that actually this does a very, very good job of representing most of the tones and colors in this, almost all of them. The only difference I would point out is that this blue in the church picture there tends a bit more towards cyan on this printer and a bit more saturated, but that's pretty much a given that no printer will be able to put the exact same colors that you see on screen. You just want to find something that comes very, very close, and this does come very, very close. I'm quite happy with it. Having done a satisfactory color print, I'm now going to try printing a similar black and white test image. This is generally a bit more difficult on inkjet printers, but I'm trying to use this with the advanced black and white photo setting, which supposedly gets good results. So we'll see how this one works out. Well, I may be running across my first issue here because this is supposed to be printed borderless, and I can't get this to do borderless at all. So I'll probably have to figure out what I'm doing wrong here. But if I try printing this borderless, it just crops off part of it and adds a small margin anyway. But one thing I can see is that the detail on this is very good. The gradients are smooth, and it seems to have a very nice dynamic range on this, very similar to the image itself on the test print. Now, glossy paper is not the best for doing black and whites, as I understand it. So I'm going to be experimenting with other papers as well, but so far I'm very happy with what I see. So now that I've printed a bunch of test prints, I'm going to try one of my own images. This is one taken up at Picture Lake several years ago, and I'm picking this one because it has a very large dynamic and color range. Now what I want to do with this is check how it's going to come out. So I go to the soft proofing button down here, and I look over here at the print settings. You can see it says that this is for sRGB, which is relatively pointless for me. So I go over to here, this is the ultra glossy, and simulate paper and ink. As you see, it gets a bit off in color. It's not quite as bright as the as the screen display, but this is what you have a choice of, relative or perceptual. Okay. I'll go with perceptual at this point. What you can do in the in Lightroom is at this point make up a proof copy, which you can then edit a bit to try and get it looking more like the original. At this point, I'm going to pass on that and just print it, but eventually I may start working on that as well. So you go over to the print module, make sure it's got, to your right is perceptual and the Epson. And I'm now going to hit the print for it. Well, that didn't work out well, and the main reason was I made a bad mistake and didn't tell it which print paper to use. This is on plain paper, which I think you'll agree is pretty good for a regular, like, all-purpose copier paper use, but it certainly does not show anything like what I want. So I think I'm going to have to go over here and make sure instead of hitting print, go to printer. That brings up the properties here, and now I need to go in and specify that I'm using the Ultra Premium, which hopefully will send it to the right place. So let's try this again. Well, that's not what I'm looking for either at this point. I'm going to have to work with this a bit longer. Well, so far I've run several test prints, all of which have been bad with various settings. So I'm going to try to troubleshoot this by taking Lightroom out of the equation. At this point, I've just exported the photo as a TIFF. I'm taking it into Epson print layout where I've gotten satisfactory results before. And we'll try putting it from here and see what the results are. Now that is dark, a bit dark, but it still looks about similar to what I'm seeing here. So apparently the problem is in Lightroom and it's talking to the printer, not with the printer itself. So that's where we stop at this point. Well, that's, I guess, all for this episode. I have to get up early for a photo shoot tomorrow, which I'm sure you'll be seeing on this channel eventually. But at this point, I can't really troubleshoot any more of this. Where it stands, we have a good print if I use Epson print layout rather than Lightroom. Now the next trick is going to be to debug Lightroom and figure out how to get it working with that. That'll be something for another day, but in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you later.